board game business is booming. With everyone having been stuck at home during the old Andy Pandy, a lot of people turn to the tabletop looking for some stress relief, and not in a cocaine way. Board games provided a lovely analog oasis away from the digital drudgery of our everyday new existence. Work meetings over Zoom, FaceTime with my mum tonight, doom scroll for an entire evening. Frankly, it all got a bit much. So pushing some lovely plastic pieces around, looking an actual human in the face as you stab them in the back using the mechanics was a lovely salve for digital fatigue. But while we've all revelled in the actual physical delights of board gaming this year, and for a lot of us for many years now, board gaming's current popularity wouldn't be nothing without something digital helping it along. Because board gaming's upwards momentum in public consciousness was given a kickstart by none other than Kickstarter. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Get on board! So board gaming was an interesting place in 2009. In 1995, Settlers of Catan had shown that board games could carefully balance luck and strategy, mechanical satisfaction and social interaction, accessibility and depth, and unlike the biggest, most famous games of all time, it just wasn't really boring. I'm looking at you, Monopoly. You big boring bastard. Catan brought new players into the hobby, and some of those players would then go on to design their own games. So by 2008, we had the genuine phenomenon that is Pandemic. And Pandemic did what pandemics do. It spread. Way beyond the reach of other board games too, and it caused a healthy amount of players to catch the designing bug. Positive pandemic jokes. But the traditional publishing model wasn't accessible to everyone. That door wasn't open to every Tom, Dick and Harry with an idea. That is until three friends invented the crowbar. Perry Chan, Yancey Strickler and Charles Adler launched Kickstarter in April 2009. The crowdfunding platform followed in the wake of contemporaries like Indiegogo and allowed people to create campaigns for projects ranging from films, art, technology, music, games, essentially anything. It then asked other users to become backers, essentially pledging their own money towards the creation of whatever this project was, and in return, they'd usually get rewards of some sort, be that a copy of whatever it was being produced, special access to the creators, but it could just be as little as the warm fuzzies for bringing something you believe into life. In most industries that it touched, Kickstarter destabilized the power dynamic. No longer were the big publishers, music labels, film studios, the gatekeepers and the tastemakers. Kickstarter allowed designers to pitch their ideas directly to the consumers, and they then voted with their wallets, taking things up to and over their funding targets. And for designers, it was really low risk. Kickstarter charged a 5% fee on top of successful projects, but charged nothing if a campaign didn't reach its funding target. So it wasn't really so much a crowbar, it was like a bulldozer used to knock down the door and build a much bigger, more accessible one. We also fired the bouncer. I'm sorry, Mark. I really like you, but it's the people. They have the power now. We don't need you anymore. Now for consumers, Kickstarter must have felt like an exciting prospect. It was offering you to become part of this grassroots community, helping to bring something you actually cared about to life, to get in on the ground floor of all these weird, exciting developments, to get them before anyone else, and also give big business the middle finger. Take that, Apple. And over the years, Kickstarter has seen huge successes in all different categories, from wearable tech like the Pebble Watch, which is now technically Fitbit, nostalgic TV throwbacks like Veronica Mars or this fidget cube thing, which was funded to the tune of $6 million. After you've spent 20 quid gluing that together, that is a lot of celebration money. And for board games, there have been some stratospheric successes in the last 6 years too. You've got Dark Souls, Zombicide, Nemesis, Gloomhaven, and now Frosthaven, which just became the most funded board game Kickstarter ever, raking in 13 million bob. But at the forefront of this boom, pun intended, was Exploding Kittens. On February 19th, 2015, the Kickstarter for Exploding Kittens became the most backed project of all time, as 219,382 people pledged their support to bring this card game to life. It also became the most funded project in the games category at the time, with over 8 million raised. Exploding Kittens made some serious noise, the kind that was impossible to ignore and the kind that many have sought to replicate over the last 6 years. Because Exploding Kittens was actually perfect Kickstarter fodder. It was co-created by popular internet cartoonist Matthew Inman, better known as The Oatmeal, so it had an existing passionate fan base to tap into. And that made Kittens a game that you weren't just funding on the merit of its mechanics, fun though it was to not be the one to draw an exploding puss. You were doing it because you wanted to help Oatmeal bring it to fruition. It's not just a product to chuck money at, but a project to become part of the team for. In the case of Exploding Kittens, this was named the Kitten Corps, the Kitten Corpse. I don't know how they say it in America. Because while the campaign was running, the community among the backers became so strong, they named themselves the Kitten Corps, developing a whole website, naming an official meal, and coming up with the Latin motto, Catalus Crepitus Communitas, or Kittens, Explosions, Community. Live, love, laugh. And with backers so invested in the game, it gave Matt and his co-creators people to lean on during the campaign, be that sending out surveys or playtest decks. It means that the finished game wasn't just funded by fans, it was also influenced by them. And this is why gamers love Kickstarter, because it's very easy to get swept up in a campaign as it goes along. Not only is there that community aspect, like you and other passionate people are literally helping to bring this thing to life like it's your little baby, but there's also that feeling like without Kickstarter, some of these projects wouldn't be being made at all. Because Kickstarter projects run the gamut from monolithic licensed games with an army of plastic minis, all the way down to like quirky little RPGs and zines. Essentially, something for every taste. So you can see how it's easy to form an emotional attachment to the games you back, especially as the creators are going to provide you updates as you kind of watch this idea getting closer and closer to the line, becoming more and more real as time goes on. All of these updates, plus the fact that you're sometimes waiting months or years for the final game to actually be delivered, all lead to one thing: hype. Gamers love getting hyped about games. But plenty of peeps also manage to keep a clear head during campaigns and provide crucial feedback to the designers, which can lead to meaningful changes and ultimately better games. Be it mechanics they think could improve the game, or something as simple as the sizes of cards, all these extra inclusions. All of this is really valuable for what people want in a game. And the love for board games on Kickstarters has only grown since Exploding Kittens first sprayed and marked its territory. 3 years after Kittens, the games section on the site reached 200 million raised across all projects, and over 3,000 successful projects were funded. This was also about the same time that video games on Kickstarter started to decline, so board games were really the ones pulling their weight to make up that total in the games section. And by 2019, that figure was $1 billion with 17,000 funded projects. The sheer number of projects and the relatively low risk for the designers in starting a campaign really helped the number of games being produced to rocket upwards, which has contributed to an overall shift in the quality and innovations in board games. Because before Kickstarter, games like Monopoly were perfectly happy to have an end game that was 2 hours long and utterly f***ing balls. And now with more people innovating in the space, there are more lessons being learned all the time, and Kickstarter games aren't exactly going to get funded with sloppy mechanics. Monopoly wouldn't be funded on Kickstarter. There's also loads of games on Kickstarter to compete against, so many developers need to innovate in order to stand out from the crowd, or of course, get hold of a beloved license. Because once you got the backers, those people are invested as well, and they're more than willing to let the designers know what they want to see and what they don't want to see. In the case of Marvel United X-Men, which I backed, it was Nightcrawler, day in, day out for the entire campaign. Where in the blue hell is Nightcrawler, you bampstards? He turned up on the final day for a late surge of funding, obviously. And Kickstarter has also created a new route into the industry for people. A lot of designers get their break on KS, and that can lead to founding their own studio or getting snapped up to work for a bigger one. It's also created the kind of cult of the celebrity designer. Look at Exploding Kittens. They've returned to Kickstarter to fund other games like Bears vs. Babies, which was another rousing success for them. But that is not always the case. Look at The Contender, a political Cards Against Humanity style game which raised $142,500 $651 in 2017, but actually left designer John Teasdale $40,000 in debt after making assumptions about shipping costs, production issues due to inexperience, and the fact that the Kickstarter hype just didn't translate to real-world sales.
All four of us have successfully completed Kickstarter campaigns in the past, and the game itself is done. All we have to do is figure out how many to print.
Teasdale has written at length about his own horror story, saying that running a Kickstarter campaign is kind of like running a business, and it is not always a skill that designers actually have. And Kickstarter never answers the question of actually how to sell your game once the campaign is done. Thankfully though, for the team at The Contender, posting about their mishaps actually went kind of viral online and helped them shift some copies of the game, ultimately helping them to break even. But even some of the biggest names in gaming haven't had the best time on Kickstarter. Look at Call of Cthulhu's 7th edition. The Kickstarter back in 2013 brought in $500,000 and smashed through stretch goals, opening up 4 more books needing to be produced. But mismanagement at publisher Chaosium led to delays, backtracking, and outright lies, with backers waiting until late 2015 to see hide or hair of their source books. They squandered thousands on layout, art, writing, and editing the volumes, and massively underestimated shipping costs, charging just $15 to ship 5 books and all of the extra rewards from America to Japan. Now, you'd need to make a deal with an elder god to get those sorts of rates. They were only saved after founding members Greg Stafford and Sandy Peterson returned to the company to bail them out, shelling out $100,000 more to get everything shipped and to not let their backers down, which is an admirable feat that not every Kickstarter project has managed.
But the worst thing that ever happens to me on Kickstarter, and I appreciate this isn't actually like one of the worst Kickstarter stories you're ever going to hear, but I was a backer of the Evil Dead 2 board game, the official board game. You know, it was done by these guys called Space Goats, and they got like a Bruce Campbell likeness and everything. I believe Sam Raimi was involved in this and all this stuff, you know, the licensing and everything. It was an official licensed board game. And I love Evil Dead 2, so I was really excited about this, and they promised like really cool mechanics to go with the game as well. I'm a bit of a sucker for IP games, actually, as you can probably tell looking behind me. So I backed that. It was about like $80 or whatever it was for like just, you know, the set and all of that. And then a few months later, they launched one for the Terminator, and I love the Terminator. Like, while I appreciate that the second one's got all the pomp and circumstance and the special effects and this and the other, like for me, the first one is my personal favorite because I love the idea of man versus machine. I love the horror and the film noir aspect of it all. Like, I just adore the movie. So again, a board game based on that, yes please, likenesses and all this sort of stuff, yes please, fully on board for this. And throughout 2017, everything seemed to be going fine. They were sending various different updates and stuff, showing you the pieces, showing you the board, or the updates they were doing, the playthroughs that they were doing, giving you the feedback that they were getting from backers and things like that. It was all really, really good. Towards the end of 2017, they said it is going to be shipped in December 2017. Early 2018, all the backers got a notification to say that a new company had come on board. I'm just going to find out what was that company called that came on. Grim Games, that's it. So Grim Games came off board, and you can see here, like, they then started to send across even more update stuff, weekly updates. They promised, like, this is, you know, everything's going to change. We're going to give you weekly updates, and this is the, you know, here's what's going on, this and the other. And then those stopped at about April. And on May 1st, we got an update that said, Dear Kickstarter backers, this is from Space Ghost. I'm writing to you today to announce something that has truly energized me. I'm announcing something that's been in the works for a very long time. Since I started Space Ghost Productions in 2006, it's always been my intent to build a creative, nimble company capable of bringing to life the coolest comic book games and shows, blah, 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 blah. However, even with the massive successes of both Evil Dead and Terminator, the financial side of our business has not been easy. There have been cost overruns, personal changes, increased tax liability, and generally more growing pains than I could have ever imagined possible. That leads me back to my announcement. On Tuesday, May 1st, roughly noon PST, we will be launching an equity crowdfunding campaign called WeFunder. So they were like, oh yeah, what you can do is you can become part of the company. You can own stocks and shares in the company and this, that, and the other. And it was like, and they were like, this is the only way that the games are going to get made. And it was bollocks, basically. And like everyone was just, you know, asking for refunds. The refunds never came. And in the end, like a week later, they were like, clearly that didn't work. And that was just it. Like that you know, the both of them were absolutely done. I did discover, like I got an email maybe a year or so later from the Evil Dead 2, because actually it got re-put up onto Kickstarter. Jasco Games apparently got the license for the Evil Dead 2 board game, and they even admitted in the post that they made, like, this is a game that's already been funded once. But they also said into this, where is it, that what that means is if this campaign successfully funds, all of the backers of the previous campaign that we had nothing to do with will be getting a copy of Evil Dead 2 the board game for only the cost of shipping. That's right, it's free plus shipping. But what that meant was it was asking people to back it again. And I've only just discovered today that it did make it. It got its $203,000. Like actually, it was looking for $195 and it got $200,003, which means I should have had a copy. Apparently they were all shipped out like November last year. I didn't get a f***ing copy. I didn't get no Evil Dead 2 board game. I backed the original one. So yeah, like it's just, I don't know, man. Like I've had some rough goings with Kickstarter in the past, and like I've become particularly wary around IP-based properties to the point where I haven't done it since. I did the Resident Evil 2 one, and that's pretty much been the last of it. That kind of like restored a little bit of faith back into me, but yeah, that Terminator and Evil Dead thing, that really bummed me out.
I think Luke's experiences are good examples of how the board game industry, through trial and error, has kind of nailed down the quote-unquote Kickstarter game, but usually they are delivered a bit more competently than what Luke has described. Companies like Come On, who rose to prominence with Zombicide, have made an art form out of this kind of game, flooding their campaigns with nostalgia-inducing licenses, oodles of minis and stretch goals that feed your FOMO. If you don't back for X amount, then you don't get Gambit, but if you want Archangel, he's in another box. These are all things I've thought about recently. And part of this is due to the new cost effectiveness of 3D printing, leading to a boom in elaborate miniatures. Part of it is due to this new fascination with being funded mere moments after Kickstarter goes live, and therefore you need to have weeks worth of stretch goals just to keep the funds rolling in. Not only that, but Kickstarters will often have their exclusive expansions, special boxes, foil seals, what have you, anything to apply just that little bit more pressure for you to back the game and likely up your pledge to a higher tier, because you won't want to miss out on this thing that might never make it to retail. I've fallen for it, I've made my peace with it, I'll do it again, you can't stop me. And the big lads and their licenses have had some big successes. Go On Board recently raised nearly €7 million for Witcher the Old World. Steamforged banked £3.5 million for Monster Hunter World. Back in 2019, Come On raised $4 million for Bloodborne the board game. The highest tier that you could back that project for came with 9 expansions bundled in. A Kallax only holds so many. And people have quite rightly pointed out that this new system of kickstarting your game and selling all of the expansions during the campaign has drastically changed the way that board games get fixed. Because before this was the norm, a game would come out, people would play it, they would react, they'd give feedback, and then a publisher would expand and fix the thing if they felt that it was warranted. And yeah, it was a slow process, and new content could actually be years in the works, but it at least was a direct reaction to genuine experience from fans. Most Kickstarters these days instead sees publishers trying to fix perceived issues with their title while the campaign is still in full flow. Unless of course they've made a tabletop simulator version. But a lot of these issues are really only speculated upon because the game isn't actually in people's hands. It also means that the expansions don't necessarily change the game in meaningful ways anymore. It's much more likely just to split some content across a few boxes in order for you to up your pledge. The video game-based board games absolutely love doing this. They'll put levels, environments, and all your fan favourite characters all divvied up into different expansions to tempt you into always chasing more. The completionists among us must really struggle with that one. Add to that the feeling that this whole thing might never actually make it to normal retail, and if it does, it could be years before it's easily available. And then what? Like, you play it, you like it, you want to play some more, but they're not selling all the exclusive expansions now, are they? And if they are, it's someone online selling them for a lot more money. So no wonder it's been known for people to have 9 boxes turn up of a game that isn't as mechanically sound as it could be, and the publisher has already moved on to their next Kickstarter project, or 3. So in some respects, it makes Kickstarter feel like an elaborate marketing tool for these bigger publishers. The game was gonna be made anyway, but this is a perfect way to build hype, push expansions and add-ons all before the game actually gets into people's hands. In some ways, it's more just a dressed up pre-order system. But the good thing is, this marketing magic of Kickstarter rubs off on all of the smaller studios too, as these monster projects bring in fans from all over the board game sphere, which is likely to make your smaller, nichier design that bit more discoverable, which is what helps to keep the industry full of fresh, innovative ideas and make sure you've always got something new to bring to the table. Like it or lump it, Kickstarter is the way that board games get made now, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. The site has had an undeniable role in the growth of gaming in the last 12 years, and it's been a great leveler, meaning anyone with an idea can pitch it to an audience of actual players and allow them to vote with their wallet on its merit. And sure, at the extreme end of the scale, things are bloated, overblown, and mildly manipulative at all, but also, I do want all of the minis because they look so good. And every time I'm there deliberating about which pledge tier to take so I can get the perfect mix of expansions, I might see something else, something smaller that wouldn't otherwise be noticed, and I might back that too, opening up the industry even further and exposing me to new creative talents. Now, never mind the fact that the universe around gaming gets a boost from Kickstarter too, be it funding seasons of your YouTube show or Critical Role's insanely popular Kickstarter for the Vox Machina animation series. It feels like fans grabbing the power and commissioning what they want to play, what they want to watch, and the kind of discussions they want to be having, and it kind of closes the loop of board gaming's community feeling. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel for more board game history, silly let's plays and collection starter lists. Click the video over there for more of our wondrous nonsense, and as always, get on board!